Fear and competition can be your best friend.
Season 3 of the Little Bricks podcast is back. We've got some amazing guests. Can't wait for you to see them. We're going to be speaking mental health, addiction, recovery, sales, business, sports, all sorts of topics. Distraction kills dreams. With the people you spend time with, you will become. Tough times don't ever last, but tough people do. I cannot wait to share it with you.
This week's episode of the Little Bricks podcast is sponsored by Bespoke Financial Group, the UK's #1 life insurance broker, helping protect your little bricks too.
So welcome to the podcast, Shaun Attwood. Hi mate.
All right, Lee, how's it going?
I'm really good, mate. Yeah, thanks for giving up your time. It's late in the night time. Shaun's a good friend of mine and he's gone out of his way to help me out. So ever the gentleman, I'm very grateful, mate. Thanks.
Oh, well, I know how busy you are as well, Lee, and for you to come down and do a podcast with us, really appreciate your time as well. Thank you.
Yeah, God bless. Well, we've become good friends, mate, and I have a lot of respect for you and Jen as well. So thanks for doing this. Just for anyone there who doesn't know your story, mate, who doesn't watch YouTube and social media, tell us a little bit about your journey, mate, because it's quite the story, right?
Yeah, just a lad from Widnes, didn't have any money growing up, got interested in the stock market at an early age and told my best mates in Widnes I was going to go to America, make $1 million by the age 30 and fly them over, which I eventually did. But my best mates included a rather oversized gentleman called Wildman, who, while I went off to America to make my fortune, he went off to prison. He was told someone had a quantity of ecstasy and he battered him, knocked him out. Person didn't have any ecstasy, so he ended up going to prison for street robbery because the guy dropped I think it was a couple of quid on the floor as he knocked him out, and Wildman went and bought a kebab with it, which qualified for street robbery. So he goes off to prison. I go off to America 5-6 years later. I fly him out there, and that was the beginning of my gangsteritis.
Gangsteritis, what's that term mean, please, mate?
It's like when you're a business graduate, like a nerd like me, and you've watched Goodfellas and Casino and Pulp Fiction, and next thing you're meeting characters like that in the real world, and then you get gangsteritis.
Super, I love it. Yeah, I'm from Middlesbrough, mate. There's a lot of that about.
Oh, there is, yeah. And I understand why it comes about. I mean, when you're a lad in your 20s, testosterone fueled, you're chasing money, chasing women. And if you can become the man, if you can become a character in the night scene, then, you get all the things that you desire, don't you? But it's not the meaning of life, which is what I tell school kids.
Yeah, you do. Be careful what you wish for, Shaun, right?
Definitely.
Yeah. Before we go into your story, which one is the most important, or was? Money, the name, the way you got treated, the reputation, the lifestyle?
Which was or is now?
Was.
So, Wall Street, the movie, Gordon Gekko, greed is good. That became my mantra. Then I was mentored by my aunt, who was quite ruthless as well. She was an absolute savage in the business world. And her mantra was, it's fuck off, be fucked in the business world. So I'm then working with a bunch of feisty New York Italians, fresh out of university. These guys are competing to see who will eat the most buffalo balls. That's how macho they are. And then any cause for a celebration, there's a limo downstairs with strippers in it. We're off to the strip club. They're snorting cocaine. They got biker gangs dropping crystal meth off at the office. That is my welcome to the business world. And I'm thinking, whoa.
Yeah. So the scenes out like Boiler Room, it sounds like that, or Wolf of Wall Street.
I started out in a penny stock brokerage that went bankrupt. But once me and my mate, I teamed up with this other youngster. We were the two youngest in the office. Once we realised what they were doing, we photocopied all the accounts. We went in at night, photocopied all the accounts, moved over to a more reputable firm, and then sent newspaper clippings of this boiler room, actually getting in trouble with the Securities Commission and things like that. So that's how we built our client base, was that, and dumpster diving.
What's that?
when you go to the Yellow Pages and you look at where all the rival stock brokerages are located, and then you show up with box cutters and rubber gloves, and you jump in the dumpster and slice open all the garbage bags, and then you find paperwork that's got the clients' names and phone numbers on it, and then you cold call them.
Never.
Yep, that's a
real thing.
That's how I came up in the stock brokerage world.
Brilliant. So
Yeah.
the film like Wolf of Wall Street, where he gets to the warehouse, Belfort, he gets them in there, he teaches them how to sell, they're doing the penny stocks. Did that imitate real life?
Totally.
Really?
We had mirrors on our quads because smiling brokers make the most money. We had 24-foot curly cords on our phones because pacing brokers make the most money. We had 6 o'clock in the morning sales meeting where there was like our boss in the beginning looked like this Italian mafia guy himself, big guy, Ronnie, and he'd bring in these like top sales guys from the other firms that he were friends of his. They were all coked up, like chewing, and screaming at us like drill sergeants. You're only as big as your numbers on this board for the month. If you're calling your wives, if you're calling your girlfriends, other brokers are calling your clients. We were shitting it. I was too scared to even take a lunch break, man. We were in there from 6 in the morning till 9 or 10 cold calling.
No.
Living off friggin' Mountain Dews and Snickers bars.
Did you, because I'm a salesman, mate, and we've had a chat about my beliefs in sales and yourself, and there was a lot of parallels there, right?
Yeah.
You learned a lot of skills there that you could, we'll come to the story soon, but you carried into crime, and was it vice versa? Is there a lot of, transferable skills?
Totally. So my business studies degree, which taught me how to structure a company and integrate various businesses, horizontal integration, vertical integration, accountancy, stock market trading, and opening bank accounts in foreign people's names for money laundering. All that skill set helped the illegal enterprise thrive. In the stock market, you're listening to people, aren't you? You're not even talking about shares, really. If you've got a client that you get to know, you go to the house, you have a meal with them, get to meet their family, their wives, kids, asking them about what's going on in their lives is most of the phone call, isn't it? Yeah. And then at the end, they might place a trade. So I think, and this carried me through prison and helped me survive prison, I became a good listener through the phone calls. And that's how I built my clients. And then in prison, the biggest, toughest guys would just come in and tell me their stories, which is carried forward to the podcast. People say, how do you get the trust of these people to come in and tell you all these, revealing things about them? And I just think over time, I became a good listener. People just have trusted me as well. And when people trust you, your word is all you've got, isn't it? And that reputation just carries forward into whatever you do.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. So trust builds good reputation and just carries you forward. How important is listening? There's a lot of salespeople who watch this. How important is the skill of listening when it comes to sales, please, Matt?
Oh my goodness. It's rapport. If you build rapport and you've got the trust, people will do anything and they'll go out of their way to help you if you're in a bad spot. And it's essential because, look, the penny stock brokers, they were just putting people in chop stocks and moving on to the next victim. And to succeed in any business, you've got to have a good reputation and you've got to build up loyalty amongst your staff and trust and be known for a good product with your customers. Now, even in the exit business, before the Sammy the Bull Gravano's enterprise came into Arizona, I was known for getting pills from Holland, white or beige presses. We had sent people over with testing kits and dance safe to make sure it was 125 milligrams of MDMA and clay, which was the correct, dosage. But when the Gravano enterprise started, all these colored pills were coming in, cut with God knows what. And those guys tried to recruit me to sell their stuff, and I refused. And I said to them, look, I built this reputation up with the locals over the years. And it's that those relationships with the locals that just got me for everything. Because only 4 people out of 100 in my case snitched. In Gravano's case, all 57 that were arrested with him snitched. So I had built such solid relationships with everybody who worked with me. If they got arrested, they had legal benefits, a lawyer assigned right away, bail money posted. And this was something that was built up over years. And even now, you know, in podcasting, you see people, they fly by night. They use people and then they're on to the next ones. There's nothing stable around them. In all my businesses, whether it's book publishing, podcasting, ecstasy, whatever businesses I have built, I've kept around me the same loyal and trustworthy people for years. And you can't go wrong once you've built it up like that.
Yeah, I agree. Relationships are key, right?
Definitely.
Yeah, they are. So we're in this you know, selling stocks in the boiler room. What happened after that in your life, please, Shaun?
Well, man got out of prison and came over. My life changed permanently. I thought I'd just house him in the pub near the Georgian, house him in a house near the Georgian Dragon British pub, and he'll kick it with the expats and have a Guinness and behave himself. And I'm going to get him a job as a wrestler, and he's going to fight Andre the Giant and all that stuff, and Hulk Hogan. I was so idealistic. I was only like, early 20s. And within weeks, me and my girlfriend go over to the house. Bunch of Mexicans answer. Well, like, where's Peter? Peter doesn't live here. Yeah, he does live here. We got him this place. Where is he? So no Peter here, no Peter. They start getting pissed off of us and pull guns out.
Wow.
Next thing, Peter just strides over the road and says, what's going on? And I said, you just nearly got me shot, Peter. Who are these guys in your place that I've rented for you? Oh, they're the local crack dealers. They like to move around a lot. So I've rented them my place. They're giving me free crack. They let me stay in their place over the road. And they're buzzing because I can do $100 crack rock in one breath. And it goes sizzle, sizzle, ding, 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 and makes all the red dots calm down, because he had red dots in his head telling to hurt people from when he was a child.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. How long were you friends for?
Our whole lives.
Oh, good guy.
He died just over a year ago. Yeah, amazing guy, but fucking just had no fear of anything. Doesn't matter whether it was the Hells Angels, the New Mexican Mafia, the Mexican cartel, the Urim Brotherhood prison gang, the Italian Mafia. Everybody had the utmost respect for him. Bruno, who was one of the enforcers for the Italians in the jail, he just tracked me down after 20 years. I think he saw my Banged Up Report episode in America. And he spoke about how the Italians, they all had a respect for him because they didn't know what to properly to make of him. He was such a maniac. He was so unpredictable.
Yeah, brilliant.
But he was massive as well. He was 6'2" and 29.5 stone when he died.
29 stone.
29.5 stone. Imagine.
Wow.
Not like bodybuilder. Like, he had the physique of a bear, but his shoulders were like, his upper body was probably like twice the width of mine.
Wow. And
his fists were twice as big, and all human teeth marks all over him.
Yeah. Listen, I'm sorry for his loss, mate.
Oh, it's all right. He's with me. His strength is with me, yes.
Always.
Yes.
Always. So he come over. He was renting his place out to the New Mexican Mafia.
No, he was renting his place out to Mexican crack dealers. Who were being run by a Colombian guy that he introduced me to, who he said wanted to invest in the stock market. Right. And I've researched this now. So the Colombians that were running the crack in Phoenix in the middle 90s, that was coming from the Cali cartel. So not the New Mexican Mafia, that was later, but I did meet them through Wildman as well.
So the Cali cartel?
Cali cartel, they took over from Escobar. Escobar died in the early 90s. So Cali took over and they were flooding. They were responsible for most of the world's cocaine distribution in the middle 90s.
Serious people.
Yeah, I'm publishing the book right now for William Rodriguez Abadia, who's the son of one of the main cartel bosses. And he ended up running the cartel when his dad and his dad's brother went to prison.
Wow.
Yeah.
Exactly like Narcos then, right?
No, because it says on the front of the book, that Narcos is full of shit, and this book's going to correct it, basically.
Wow.
Yeah, they were as powerful as Narcos portrayed, but the Narcos is US DEA propaganda. The American good guys go in and kick the bad guys' asses without showing how evil and corrupt the Americans are, and the CIA, and the war against communism, and supporting right-wing death squads and wiping out peasants, calling them communists and all that shit. Yeah.
Wow, the fuck. Serious. So he introduced you to this man who wanted to invest in the stock market. Relationships come in, I guess. Then how did that build up?
No, I declined those guys investing in the stock market. I didn't want anything to do with them at that point in my life. I was still, a normal civilian, but that changed during the course of Wildman's visit. So that first place ended up with a dead body on the doorstep. So a couple come over to buy crack, and Wildman sent the female over the street because the Mexicans had moved on. And the man stayed with Wildman, showing him his gun, because Wildman had never seen a gun before. And he said, look, I'm from England. Can you show me how guns work? And the man goes, yeah, and safety's on. This is how we do it in America. Pull the trigger, and blew his own brains out in front of Wildman. And my aunt called me. It was headline news, and I bombed up there in my car. And then Wildman moved to an apartment on the west side with a big steroid head bouncer with long Chippendale hair who claimed to be a gangster disciple member, and with two women. And I'd written a deposit check for him to rent that place, get a call the next day from the landlady. And she's like, Peter's been evicted. I'm like, why? He beat his roommate up. I was like, how do you know that? He said the roommate was seen running for his life through the apartment complex in the middle of the night with plasterboard powder all over his face, and the apartment's full of human head-sized holes in the walls. So fortunately, I was able to stop the check. He destroyed that place so fast. And then he moved. One of the women, she said a friend's boyfriend was behind on the rent in Tempe, Arizona, which is like the university town, party central. And that was where I moved him next. And that's where the criminal enterprise started. Because wherever Wildman went, it was 24/7, homeless people, gangsters, Native American, transgender, street walking sex workers, strippers, Italian mafia, Russian mafia, Mexican mafia, gangbangers. Just all day long, he filled his house with all the street people and all of the people of the night wherever he went. He took control of the streets. Even when we went to LA, homeless people coming and knocking at our hotel, dropping crack off for him in the middle of the night, waking us up. And he stayed out there with him. We just left him there. Yeah, so that was where I met the New Mexican Mafia, who had my back later on, which was a good alliance, probably saved my life in some situations. And my gangsteritis just jumped to the next level, because now I am really meeting serious people. I'll give you an example of one story at the crossroads of my life, where I could have made a decision to stay in the stock market, but instead chose excitement of the rave scene. So in this apartment complex in Tempe, it's called Rancho Marietta. It's got a number of apartment buildings, massive complex. And I've got, as well as Wildman being in one building, another building, I've got this other guy called Seth and Fish and Fish's girlfriend. So I get a call from Fish. He's like, can you grab Wildman and come over here, something's happened? I'm like, well, what's happened? He's like, I don't want to speak about it on the phone. And I said, all right, I'll go grab Wildman. So I went looking for Wildman. He was out collecting debts for the crack dealers in Phoenix with Seth. So I couldn't get them. So I'm delayed a bit looking for him. And then I end up in Tempe almost an hour later after the phone call. Get to Fish's door, knock on the door. Fish answers the door, and his girlfriend's crying. So I think she's been sexually assaulted, and they want Wildman to do something about it. So I'm like, what's the matter? What's the matter? And they're just shaking their head, just staring at me. And then I hear, zzz, zzz, zzz. What the fuck was that? You better go look. So I walk into this other room. There's a naked, hog-tied man on the floor, with his arms tied behind his back, got this big rockabilly quiff. There's one of the New Mexican Mafia guys, an older guy with silver hair, swept back, bunch of Mexicans with cattle prods. The older guy is giving the nod. And then the electrocuting the rockabilly-looking guy with the cattle prods. And when they do so, he's gagged. So he's like, you can see he's trying to scream. Piss shoots out of his dick onto the floor, and his body just starts rocking up and down like that. So I look at him like, I'm shitting myself. I look at him, the guy with the silver hair, like I'm thinking, fucking hell, I'm a liability for these guys walking in here seeing this if they think I'm gonna, so I've got like to put on a face. So I'm just like looking at him. He's giving me this welcome to the crime family smile. And I'm like, yeah, looks like you got the situation under control. I'll tell Wild Man he's not needed, blah, blah, blah. I'm turning to fish. I'm like, what the fuck happened? And he's like, right, here's what happened. That guy on the floor, he's one of my customers. He come and bought some drugs, watched the apartment, waited for me to leave. And then he broke in and he robbed your drugs. He robbed their drugs. I called you, I called them, and they got here first. I was like, fucking hell. So what ended up with that lad was they contacted his roommates and said, look, 10 grand, or he's going out to the desert, and the 10 grand was paid, and that was that.
Wow. Serious?
Yeah.
Such a difference to gangsters here.
All the way back to the office then, it's an hour, driving back to my office almost an hour from Tempe. I was just having nightmares. Just think I couldn't get that guy's face out my head, thinking he's, is he going to get killed?
Was that enough to stop you, Shaun?
No, it wasn't, because I had gangstitis and it was too much, and I was on the drugs. I was doing crystal meth, I was doing ecstasy, I was doing Mexican pharmaceuticals, and the drugs. What people don't realize is it starts out fun, but it scrambles your decision-making processes and you don't realize it. And then the first time you take it, the pleasure's off the scale. Yeah. But every time you take it, the pleasure goes down, and you're doing more, or you're mixing it up, and your brain's getting more scrambled. So yeah, I'm telling myself I'm in a movie now, like Pulp Fiction, Scarface, whatever it is. It was like a scene out of Scarface, seeing that. And I'm invincible as well. Drugs is telling me I'm invincible, above the law, blah, 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 all this stuff.
No. And then what happens next year?
So I made the fateful decision to quit the stock market and go into the party scene full time. Wild Man ended up completely unhouseable. He met a woman. He had a woman in England, Wild Woman, but he had an affair with a striptease dancer. And how that came about was we were having a party at his apartment, and Wild Man's party trick was he'd just yell at the whole room, who wants to hit me as hard as they want in the face or taser me? And he'd just sit down, and people would line up to punch him as hard as they could in the face or taser him. And it'd just be like giggling, like they were tickling his toes. So this black stripper chick with scars all over her body and burns and everything all over her body, obviously like fucking S&M freak or something, walks up to him and goes, that ain't shit. You're a pussy. I fucking taser my vag. Anyway, she had this boyfriend with her who was like a bouncer guy in a black T-shirt and shit. And I'm like, I could see like Wild Man's fucking getting excited over this. She agrees to do a demo, but she sends the boyfriend off to get some food from the kitchen. And while Wild Man and her are flirting, and she fucking just hikes her skirt up. She's got no nicks on, and bzz, 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 down her vaginal lips. And she's just squatting and like, like she's loving it. So when the boyfriend came back, Wildman's like, she's with me now. We're coming to your house later on to get her stuff, get them packed. And he almost kicked off. There was almost a fight, but Wildman, he just fucking stood up, and he's been up for days on crack. His eyes are completely blood red, and you could just see the devil in him. And I've seen him do that many a time where people are back down. He just stands up, eyes go fucking mental. He's got one eyebrow up and one eyebrow completely horizontal, like fucking. That does look scary when you saw his face like that. The only time that ever looked scarier was he was on a crack and a meth binge for days on end, and he had a stroke. So half his fucking face wouldn't move, and he was drooling out of one side of his face. So we're partying one day, and in the middle of the party, and he just stands up with his stroke face. He's got his meth pipe in this side, the side that's working. He's got drool coming down his face on the other side. eyebrow off on this side, eyebrow flat on this side. And he just goes, people used to think I look scary. Just look at me now. And when he laughed, man, he was so big. It's like the room fucking shakes. Like,
unbelievable.
18's like.
Unbelievable. So you start making the descent into crime at this stage.
Yeah.
Well, man's got a really big name across the area. You're the brains of the operation. What drugs were your product? Which was your product of choice?
All right, this was a relatively innocent phase of it all right now. I just quit stockbroking. Wildman's first visit, he ends up completely unhousable. He's destroyed everywhere he's lived. No hotels will take his back. So he ends up homeless, living under a tree in Tempe Beach Park with a Rambo knife and a baseball bat with his stripper. And these extortionists are like shaking down the homeless people because they're dealing drugs and stuff like that in the park. So Wildman just gets his baseball bat and just beats the shit out of them. And then he takes control of all the homeless in the park. But the cops come and get him because he's going in and out of restaurants, not paying, going out of shops, not paying, like Bonnie and Clyde, him and the stripper. So that was the end of his visit. But I've now already finished my stock market career. I'm committed now full time to throwing raves and distributing ecstasy. And it's about, that was 97, 98. It's 2 more years later before Wildman comes back. But by then, we're not just getting 1,000 pills from LA. We're getting 40,000 pills at a time out of Holland by the time Wildman comes back.
When you make a decision to get 40,000 pills from another continent and get them back, what's the thought process behind that? What's the planning like? Is it just like doing a business deal and planning the logistics of it? Was it that calculated, or was it?
No, it was very haphazard. It happened over time, and a lawyer gave me advice on it as well. So in the beginning, we sent people with testing kits to Holland, and we would put them on people's bodies, strapped to people's bodies, or we hollowed out annual reports, stock market annual reports, and glued them into annual reports, stacks of them. But, economies of scale, the quantity we needed was way more. So then what happened was I lost a few people. So a guy called Fuzzy Chris, he got arrested at an airport in America, ended up in prison. Wild Woman, she arrived at the airport in Phoenix with him in like vitamin jars and stuff. And they took him out. They stopped the search. They took him out. They said to her, what are they? And she was like, vitamins, weight loss stuff. And they believed her and just put them back in the luggage and told her to have a nice day. But they did deport her with them. So I said, I consulted a lawyer. And he's like, Shaun, shouldn't we bring in drugs in directly to American airports? Bring them in through Mexico and then just drive them over the border, when it's spring break in a vehicle with scuba diving tanks and all that tourist bric-a-brac and shit like that. So that's what we did. We had operations there through Mexico. Now, if you run through Mexico, you got to be okay with the people down there. The cartel has the whole country divided into plazas. So depending upon which part of the country you're in comes under control of a certain cartel. And my mate said, if Wild Man and Wild Woman went down there, the way they behaved, the Mexicans would kill them. But they paved the way for it all. The Mexicans were running around in military jeeps, and they called Wildman El Oso, the bear, because of his fighting style. And he was just giving loads of LSD and ecstasies and everything to the cops. And it was all smooth for a while, at least. It was all smooth down there for us.
When dealing with the Mexican cartels, it's only over really the past decade they've come to light, certainly in the UK, have been some sort of criminal enterprise where violence is something that we've not seen before, really. It's just completely different to anything we've ever seen before. Is that, again, real, Shaun? Yeah,
it's way real. And having researched it and written loads of books and met people in prison who worked for the cartel. I knew one of my best mates in prison was a pilot for Felix Gallardo and Cara Quintero, if you watch Narcos. And he just told me the reality of it as well, situations he'd been in. So I think when I had operations in Mexico, even though I'd seen some scenes in movies, what happens in Mexico, there was a degree of naivety, there was a degree of innocence, and there was a degree of I'm on drugs and I'm invincible. And actually the danger was was quite extreme. Things could have just gone wrong in the blink of an eye. But I was, running around like down there with these people. Like I had gangsteritis, and I was the shit because I had all this money and I was bringing all these pills in and I was throwing my financial weight around. But looking back, it was extremely dangerous and pretty stupid.
Wow, absolutely crazy. And the big names, like obviously El Chapo stands out. Were you aware of that name at that time? Was it a big name then?
No, I wasn't. I wasn't aware of all of the big names. And, this is the thing. If you're operating a drug enterprise, your name's not out there, is it? You're in the shadows. These, so I wasn't putting my name out there. And the people I was doing business with weren't putting their names out there. So I don't know who the fuck anyone was. I just knew certain mafias were certain mafias, but that was it.
So you're importing from Holland. You're now dealing with the cartels in Mexico. It must be out of control at this point. It must be where you're under severe surveillance.
Well, the New Mexican Mafia house, I learned who all they were when my mate G-Dog, I took him back to his brother's house, and they were a federal SWAT team were taking them all out. And then they were headline news. That's when I finally knew who they were after being in business for a few years. That was the house I went to where they had a rocket propelled grenade launcher on the TV.
Fucking hell.
Yeah.
Serious. And these type of gangsters, in the UK, you have a town or a city, and growing up, it was always like a big guy who was the hardest in the town, whatever it may be. Obviously, we're making a transition quite rapidly now to knife and gun violence, etc., quite rapidly. But that seems like a completely different scale to anything we've seen in the UK, right?
So in America, it's organized crime. So the hardest man in an area, he would be recruited as a foot soldier for the organized crime enterprise. But he's not got the power. He's got the forcefulness, but it's the guys at the top who've got the power.
Right. So purely commercial.
Purely commercial, streamlined, massive criminal enterprises who the cartels are worth more than small countries. The pilot for Cara Quintero and Felix Gallardo told me, Shaun, don't ever do anything on active cartels in terms of writing about them and stuff like that, because they could just reach out to you anywhere in the world. I mean, Escobar have written multiple books about him. They put people in like East European embassy positions, government officials, and he sent hitmen out there where they did attempted assassinations in these countries, put guns together and got out, tracked them down, found them, shot them. They could get you anywhere in the world. And there's, I met a really brave woman recently. I'm not going to say anything about her name or anything, but she's doing stuff on active cartels. I'm like, fucking hell, got bigger balls than me. Don't you think about your safety? And I told her the story what the pilot told me. You've got to draw the line somewhere. It's not worth your life.
Not worth it, no. And you've, from there then, you Sammy the Bull Gravano, who was obviously John Gotti's right-hand man until he did the famous snitch of all time. He turned government informant, which was certainly the biggest one I've read. I'm sure you've maybe read bigger ones than that. What was the story behind that, please, Shaun?
So I'm doing a collaboration with the Gravano family, let's say, right now. I cannot, I'm under contract, I can't expand on now.
Okay.
But I've just done another documentary with National Geographic, did another one with Vice, and they focused on my ecstasy enterprise in competition with the Gravano enterprise. Now, I'm going to say the Gravano enterprise because doing this work with these documentary companies who get all the facts right because they got legal departments, I have learned that Sammy the Bull Gravano was not running the ecstasy ring he was convicted of running.
Wow.
He invested money into it, his son. So that ecstasy ring was in existence before the Granos came on the scene. It was run by a guy called Mike Papa. It was associated with the devil dogs who used to beat people up and bark and howl like dogs as they did so. Yeah, I think they were, they might have been like white power guys or something like that. But so they started, this ecstasy ring in competition with mine. Then Mike Papa recruited Gerard Gravano and Karen Gravano, the daughter and the son, into it. But when we had meetings for people who were working for them, they were throwing Sammy the Bull's name out there saying, you know, one called him, we can have you taken out to the desert. So I naturally assumed back then that Sammy the Bull Gravano was running the Exy ring. Now, his son, he wasn't. Now, his son told me there was a bounty on me by the Gravano enterprise. And the son got a call from a striptease dancer. I was in a gay bar called the Crowbar with Wild Man and G-Dog and Wild Woman, and things got a bit moody and they advised me to leave. So we left, and Gerard Gravano arrived in a car full of armed people. They were just about to take me. Yeah, so we missed them in time.
Wow.
So
By sliding doors, eh?
So there was a real thing going on, but the old man wasn't aware of what was going on the street level.
Wow. Will you get to meet him for the documentary, like we say that, or?
I'm not allowed to speak about anything.
Okay.
Yeah.
I respect that, man. No problem at all.
Yeah.
So how did the bus come? How did you end up in prison?
Oh, yeah, May 16, 2002, SWAT team. And there was 10 witness statements that led to that. You know, they sent undercovers in. They couldn't infiltrate us. I changed my identity. I had so many names. The prosecutors didn't put them all in my grand jury indictment. And in the end, they wiretapped people's phones that got to me and put a satellite tracking device on my car. And that was when the shit hit the fan. That's when the SWAT team came. And I quit a year before as well. I met a woman, fall in love, quit the importation, thought I got away with it. But I was naive to the statute of limitations. That's what I tell the kids. You might do a drug deal and think you got away with it. There's no statute of limitation in the UK. They could come and get you any time. All it takes is someone to say they did the deal with you. In America, statute of limitation is 7 years for drug deals. In Arizona, that is. It's because it's Arizona State that ended up prosecuting me. But it was a multi-agency investigation, all the different federal agencies, and the resources that had gone after the bull were put on my enterprise after they took the bull down and the New Mexico Mafia down.
Wow. How long did you get sentenced to?
So I got sentenced to 9.5 years, of which I had to serve 6. And I used a lawyer that was recommended to me by the New Mexico Mafia. And he was a loophole lawyer and he did a really good job. I'd probably still be in prison right now if it wasn't for him.
Really?
Yeah.
And what was the inside? We spoke personally, obviously being mates. Inside of it, what movie could you say it's actually like that inside and it's actually real?
What, in the jail?
Mm.
So I started out in a very famous, notorious jail called the Maricopa County Jail System, run by Sheriff Joe Arpaio, who prided himself on being America's toughest sheriff. He had, the pink underwear, the chain gangs, all that shit. And like Shawshank Redemption, man, he was like the governor out of Shawshank, proper redneck, all punishment, no rehabilitation, fucking prison food. He boasted that it cost him 50 cents or less per day to feed each prisoner the rotten food. And his prison dogs, he spent more feeding his prison dogs than his prisoners, and they deserved it because they were working for a living.
Wow.
But they paid out $50 million in lawsuits by the time I landed there in people that the guards had murdered. All these deaths. People can research it. Brian Crenshaw is one case. I think he was the blind inmate that the guards were beaten to death, and the female guard tried to stop it, and his face had turned blue, and the prisoners tried to stop it. They said, "Why are you still beating him? He's already dead." And they continued to beat the corpse while it was dead, caught on camera. Scott Norberg, a mentally ill man, wandering in the neighborhood. They put him in a coma as well, and he died. So yeah, it was the jail with the highest rate of death in America. Now, fortunately, Wildman is a good person to get arrested with in situations like that. And he made a name for himself quite fast, and I didn't get in any violent situations in that jail.
Did you see some bad things, Shaun, like people die and really, really, really like horrendous, horrific situations, yeah?
Yellow fluid coming out of people's heads. Saw a guy with his leg pointing in the wrong direction. There was a mentally ill old man who wouldn't stop rambling. I don't know what the gang did to him, but as I walked past him, blood just squirted out the back of his head, like just like,
wow.
Yeah, like a hose pipe of it. It was every day. Teeth getting knocked out, bouncing on the floor. Saw that quite a lot. People's teeth just flying around. But you got used to the sound of heads getting bashed against toilets, bodies getting thrown around. But yeah, I had to grow up fast, and it was very humbling. I'm sober. I had social anxiety, which is why I took drugs. All of a sudden, I'm living with maniacs and gang members and Nazis and shit. You got to grow up fast. You got to learn the ropes fast. You got to just keep yourself to yourself. You got to keep your ego in check. Don't talk any shit. Don't brag, and find out who's who and make alliances with the right people. Because later on, I wrote the life story for an Italian mafia multiple homicide murderer called Two Tonys, who was 740 plus years. He left the dead bodies of rivals from Arizona to Alaska. And once he took me under his wing, I never got sweated again after that, because he had so much respect, even though he was old and looked like Uncle Junior when I met him. It's all about making alliances with the right people. And again, that honesty, the authenticity. My cellmate hooked me up with him, because he knew he could protect me. My cellmate was Long Island. And he didn't say that. He just said, "Will you have a game of chess with this guy?" I'm like, "Yeah, what's he in for?" "Oh, multiple homicide murder." I'm like, "Oh, fucking hell, hold on a minute." It's like, "No, he's cool, dude. I'll go get him." He comes down the stairs, I play chess. Throughout the game, Two Tonys was speaking his mind. So I won him quite fast. And I thought, that was easy. But I didn't realize he was testing me. He said, Long Island had told him I was a blogger. I was a writer, and he was looking for a writer. So he was like, "Shaun, how did you beat me so fast?" I'm like, "Well, you were speaking your mind throughout the game. You wouldn't show someone your hand of cards in a game of cards, would you?" And he's like, "No." Then he's like, "I like you, Shaun. I think you're an honest person. Would you be willing to write my life story?" So every day I'm sneaking into his cell writing his life story. And sadly, he died from liver cancer and drug taking so he didn't see the publication of his book, which is called The Mafia Philosopher, Two Tonys. But the spirit of him lives on with me. I mean, at the fence, when we were saying goodbye, there was tears in his eyes. And this was a whacker of men. That's what he called himself, a whacker of men. To see those tears in his eyes and for him to tell me that I was like the son that he'd never had. Yeah. Powerful. And that's the thing, Lee. The human quality in people, even people who've murdered people. People think prisoners lock them up, throw away the key to animals, but they're not. A lot of people just made a mistake at one point in their life. Okay. Some people regret that for the rest of their lives, and they wish they could make amends. And there's good and bad in everyone. And if you focus on the good, it helps it come out. And that's what I try and do, no matter what people say about people, because I'm always trying to get dragged into the gutter. But it's just stay focused on the positive. Yeah. That reinforces it in that person. And there's like a cross-pollination where it comes back to you.
Yeah, I get that, mate. And listen, I can definitely vouch for this. Shaun's given me some really good life advice. And you made a decision when you come out of jail, got deported back to the UK. You've got a fantastic platform with 700,000 subs.
Yeah, I mean, all right, all this internet presence, it started in 2004, my blog. My aunt smuggled my writing out of the maximum security Madison Street jail run by that sheriff. And that put me on the map in the media, because the BBC ran it, The Guardian ran it, and I was writing like quite in a funny tone about living with the cockroaches. That's what they focused on. But it was part of activism. It launched me as an activist, and that jail did get closed down a few years later. And then the YouTube channel was started in 2007. So people say, yeah, 700,000 subs, lucky bastard, but they don't see how long that's took to get there. It doesn't happen overnight. There's a lot going on behind the scenes, isn't there, constantly?
Absolutely, mate, yeah. But you use that platform to give others a platform. But I know that you might not promote this, but you do talks for schools, prisons. You help a lot of people with addiction issues and mental illness. And you use that platform to sort of say that message isn't the right one. There's a better way. Why is that important to you, Shaun?
It's my responsibility as someone who's gone through addiction and didn't even realize I was addicted because my mind was so gone until that therapist in prison said to me, "Shaun, are you a drug addict?" No, that's someone who lives under a bridge. They're snatching the granny's purses and shooting up heroin all day. And he's shaking his head. And he's like, an addict is someone who does drugs to the point where it affects their life, their job, their family relationships. Take a look around you right now, Shaun. Where are you? Look out the window. There's a gun tower, guard with a rifle, razor wire. Like, oh, fuck. Choosing to take drugs has took me here, and it's wrecked all the things you've just said. My life, family relationships, work, everything. I am totally qualified And that light bulb moment then set me on a path of having to go inside myself to address my demons. Because my thing is, people are addicted and it's sad. And a lot of people help them, but they end up enabling them. And you can't externally help them because it's something's messed up internally. The only way you can help them to fix it permanently is guide them into going on that inner journey, whether it's therapy, whether it's meditation. It could be all of them. Could be all the different therapies, whatever works for some people doesn't work for other people. Whatever they dovetail with, they've got to keep working on that inner journey to get those demons addressed. Now, the sad thing is most people who are in prison, I learned, have suffered extreme childhood trauma, primarily from paedophiles, which also set me on a crusade of reporting on paedophiles, which got my channels shut down twice. So I've got to be careful what I say on that. But these kids are not given the tools to deal with the trauma, the abuse, as they're approaching puberty and they're realizing what had happened to them. It's compounding that trauma, still got no tools to deal with it. So they start self-medicating on drugs, which leads to that trajectory of drug taking for women, whereby from the women prisoners I met, they were like pickpockets. Some of them got into sex work, shoplifting. From the men I've met, it's like robberies to finance the drug addiction, then heavier and heavier crimes, drug trafficking, armed robberies. Same path leads to the same place, prison for these people. And then society then puts them in a place in America, which is like a house of horrors for the prisons out there, which compounds the trauma again. So then they're all on heroin because that's going to knock them out of thinking about any of it. So instead of giving them the tools to deal with it and helping these kids who've been victims of pedophiles, we're just traumatizing them every step of the way. And these are the ones then that are doing the big, massive sentences, making private prisons billions. And the pedophiles who are causing all this havoc to society are getting slaps on the wrists and getting released so they can have more victims, hundreds of victims they can ruin lives of and send these kids into the prison and the care home system and the prison system and on it goes. And that's why we're campaigning on our channel that the justice system is upside down and these things need to be reversed. And the other thing is, Lee, when I got out of prison, all these fantastic people came into my life to help me, to lift me up. You know, Sally Hinchcliffe, an author, mentored me to get me on the road of getting my books published. You know, my agents in public speaking and literature, other journalists, other people who've been in prison as well, who were a higher profile back then. And now I'm in a position to pay that back karmically. And it warms my heart, you know, when my first podcast guest comes on and he's getting he got a book deal out of prison. This is a guy who spent 30 something years in California prison for a crime he hadn't committed. Come on one day to find a corpse in his living room. He took the fall for it because his wife was up for the death penalty and she dumped him right away as soon as he took the fall for it. While he was in prison, he learned he was born on the Isle of Man. His name is Jamie Morgan Kane, if anyone wants to research this and look it up. And he gets straight deported back to London, where he only knows one person, a pen pal he got through Prisoners Abroad, who's a charity I work with, and Curse the Trust is another charity I work with who help prisoners. And we helped him go to the Isle of Man, and the light in his eyes, he talked at the prison, he talked in the schools, and the light in his eyes and the reception for everyone. And now he's moved from London to Newcastle. He's getting closer and closer to the Isle of Man. He just got his citizenship granted, his birth, whatever it's called. They authorised, they've acknowledged that he was born on the Isle of Man, the legal paperwork. So he's this close now. So the platform, it can change people's lives. That's just one story of many. And that's the kind of stuff I'm going to look back on. And I think it's karmically, people can see we're on this mission. Yeah. And that's one of the reasons probably why we're inundated right now with a lot of people who want to come on the podcast, because they can see there's a lot of phonies out there that are saying they're reformed while taking money from cartels, things like that going on. Absolute fucking phonies, man. So, yeah. I think that when you help people, it puts a brake on your ego. It's good for your soul. My ego was as big as the Grand Canyon. It was my activism, writing things down to get the conditions changed in that jail. Wasn't thinking about myself, thinking about other people, that led to all this. That wasn't the reason I did it. But look what good comes in your life when you help other people and you're not just burning through people and screwing them over, and you're building relationships. And that just feeds into everything in life and business to make you emotionally happy, successful, to have these good relationships with everyone around you. And then those people are with you for life. Those people then are with you for life. Yeah, all my mates are with me for life. Sadly, most of them have died. My mates in America, the men, most of them are dead. About 8 or 9 of them are dead. But it goes right back to what you said at the very beginning about reputation and trust and loyalty and relationships and honesty and authenticity.
Yeah, well, I'm proud to call you a friend, mate. Good podcast, special ones, because we've got a big pipeline of them. Any good ones coming up for our listeners to tune in and say, good one?
Oh, my God. So I just interviewed one of the founders of the Aryan Brotherhood prison gang out of California, Michael Thompson. He served 45 years. He was shot 22 times on separate occasions. So many attempts on his life. He can't even, the last one was just 7 years ago. And he is one bad ass. We've got a guy called John Abbott who served time back in California then as well. And John Abbott, he just looks like a normal older guy, but just speaks in a way whereby if this guy was killing someone, his heartbeat wouldn't even jump up a fraction. He would be so cool about doing it, calm and collected. But Michael Thompson's the same. I think these guys have been through those hardcore California prisons in the 70s and 80s, especially when there was no cameras and there was all beheadings and everything. It was just pure, a different world from what people understand now in the modern industrial prison era we've got now with all the cameras and the guards back then. Guards would just take you out into the desert and murder you like that in California and Arizona. So there's a way about these guys that have survived it, these old timers, whereby they got this manner about them where you just know they're ready to go at any moment because they've had to live. So that's going to be a fantastic one. I mean, this week we've got 3 amazing ones. We had Lee Marvin Hitchman and Kira yesterday, who that was like 10 podcasts rolled into one. His story: he was born in prison and he was abused, got into crack, got into drugs at age 8, and the gangs hustling in Ross Side and Manchester. Gang leaders, the gang take him and they're gonna set the dog on him, and on and on it goes. His missus was a victim of a guy who was grooming schoolgirls, and she got away from all that, but then she ended up being a victim of the textbook rapist. No. Her podcast is coming separately to his, and we're going to do a part 2 with him soon. The one that's out tonight is a undercover cop, a level 1 undercover cop. People said to us, we'll never get a level 1 on because these are the elite. So his face and his voice are disguised. He's out of Manchester as well, working at Dale Cregan. And then on Thursday, we've got a woman. It's a series about twins who were abused from age 9. And sometimes when people get abused and they get on drugs and the behavior becomes psychopathic because of the abuse, they never want to be hurt again. So they become extremely tough. I know that happened with my co-defendant, Wild Woman. She was gang raped when she was a kid, and she decided that's never going to happen again. And she became extremely tough and took a whole family out of a bar stool in my hometown. That's why she became hospitalized, and that's why she became known as Wild Woman. So this one of the twins, she's telling us this story, when she was a school kid then after the abuse. She's psychopathic basically, and a drug dealer rips her off. Nobody's going to rip me off. She goes to fucking burn his house down, sets a fire, ends up, getting arrested. Family's in there and everything. But really, really, really intense, epic podcast. 3 of them this week. We've got yours coming up, Lee, as well.
Thank you.
Once the Liverpool lads get around to it. And We're doing 2 or 3 a week right now. We're getting through them all. We ended up coming back from the north with 40. We did 30 on the road, but we had 10 to 20 unpublished in the south. So we had 40 to 50 podcasts unpublished. So we're going through them at a rate of 3 a week right now. Usually at 6 p.m. if people want to watch my channel on a Sunday night, Monday night, and Thursday night. And then we do a 4-hour live stream every Wednesday night as well, which is different from what we do with the podcasts. We talk about UFOs and Bigfoot and all the Freemasons and conspiracies, and it's eclectic.
Well, that's a big rabbit hole.
Yeah,
big rabbit hole. But listen, Shaun, it's amazing how much content you put out. Shaun, for those who, I'm a pal, so he's known as the robot because his work ethic. We'll have to message each other, mate, early in the morning, late at night, still at work, mate, and as we're working. So I'm just very honored to call you a friend.
What was funny, Lee, was when we were talking about our idiosyncrasies. And I was like, yeah, so what I do now is I sat down, get my phone out, and just start doing my fucking emails while I'm taking a piss, because you can't waste those vital seconds. And I see your eyes going, fucking hell. I hadn't thought about that one. But my eyes are going like, fucking hell. When you were telling me your ones, I'm like incorporating your ones now into my life.
There we go.
Yeah.
2 lunatics together.
Totally. 2 robots.
2 robots, mate. But listen, I'm very grateful for coming on. Shaun Attwood, a really great guy. Look at his YouTube channel, his social media. Pumps so much content out. It's actually hard to keep up, mate. I don't know how you keep up with that. It's off the Richter, so I'm proud to call you a friend as well, and I'm very grateful for the Little Bricks podcast, mate.
Thanks, Shaun. Respect. Thank you for having me on. Cheers.
Super. Thanks, Shaun. Take care, mate. Bye.
Join the award-winning team at Bespoke Financial, where you get free training in your own time.